play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced by the Wheatley School, and directed by Colin Mckenna. In it you will see Miss Luber, Miss Escalin, Miss Misk, Mr. Costa, Mr. Singh, Mr. Dinitz, and many others. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. To show some streaks of light over in the east there behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there's the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks and some Canuck families. Over there is the Congregational Church. Across the street's the Presbyterian. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Right here is the town hall and post office, combined. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps here. Along here is a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. The first automobile's gonna come around in about 5 years, belong to Banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. He lives in the big white house up on the hill. Here's the grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody manages to look into those two stores once a day. Public school's over yonder. High school's still farther over. 9:15 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons. The whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. And this is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. Here's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, the newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corner Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers, too. And right here, it's a big butternut tree. Nice town. You know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, so far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountain say 1670 to 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Herseys, same names as are around here now. So, it's about dawn. The only lights on are in a cottage near the tracks where Polish mothers just had twins. And in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the morning paper. In the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 to Boston. Naturally, out in the country, all around, there have been lights on for some time, what with milkins and so on, but town people sleep late. So, another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case, and there's his wife coming downstairs to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital was named after him. Miss Gibbs died first, though, a long time ago, in fact. She went to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there, pneumonia, but her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery there now with a whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersley before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. There's Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to make her breakfast too. And there's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And there's Joe Crowell Jr. delivering the paper.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, just a pair of twins born over in Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
I'll take it. Anything new happened in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster, is getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's the knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's it telling you today? Gonna rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
You ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright. Graduated from high school here, head of his class, so he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. He was going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But then the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Giddy up, Bessie! What's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsom, delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, just a pair of twins born in Mishkorowski.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger and bigger every year.
Gonna rain today, Howie?
No, fine day. That'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's been all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockharts stopped taking their quart of milk every day. She keeps wanting to leave them. Quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Come on, Bessie. Doc?
Howie?
Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours of sleep this morning, can't you?
Well, let's see. This is homework's coming 11. I know it's going to be about. Stomach ain't what it used to be.
All's told, you won't get more than 3 hours of sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you good. Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up. I declare, you have got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pop.
Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go up and get 40 winks.
Children, Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself up good or I'll come up there and do it myself.
Mom! What dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I wash and iron the blue gingham for you special.
Mom! I hate that dress.
I'll hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mom, George is throwing soap at me.
I'll come inside the both of you, that's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our town too. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it and it brought him a fortune.
Wally, put away your book. No,
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Ma, by 10 o'clock I got to know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too, Ma, when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I have a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates? That's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca has so much money. She's more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, Ma, that's the first bell.
I gotta hurry. I'm done.
One last one. You don't have to run. Wally, pull your pants and bring that. Stop straight up and pick up your feet. Here's your Oh, you don't belong to me. Oh, don't be so scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold? Well, I still have that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know I'd go to choir practice today. Wouldn't be any use. Have you tried singing over your voice? Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. I thought while I was resting myself I'd drink some of these beans. Oh, let me help you. Beans have been good this year. I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate him, but I've noticed they're able to get him down all winter. Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst like Julia Gibbs. Here, hand me some of those beans first. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday? No? Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient, wanting to see Dr. Gibbs. And he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here at Julia Gibbs. Oh, he did? That old thing. Oh, it was so big, I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox. Well, you're going to take it, aren't you? I don't know. You don't know? $350. What's come over you? Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been a dream of my life to see Paris, France. I don't know, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but I've always been promising myself that if I ever have a chance. Well, how does the doctor feel about it? Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me somewhere. Well, what did he say? Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since the day I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he makes a trip to the battlefield of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says. Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. He's a good mind to leave Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair. Oh, it's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills now, stopping at every bush and pacing it out as if we were going to buy it. Well, Julia, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, you sell it. Then you'll get to see Paris, all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know. I'm sorry I mentioned it. It just seems to me that once in your life before you die, you want to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now we're going to skip a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've invited Professor Willard of our state university to come sketch in a few details of our past history here. Is Professor Willard here? Is Professor Willard here?
I'm here.
May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? A few brief notes, thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies in the old Pleistocene Grande Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest in the world. We're very proud of that. A shelter city devoted to salt crosses it with messages of Mesozoic shell. Some stand outcroppings, but that's more recent. 200 to 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils, in fact, I may say unique fossils. 2 miles out of town are Steopectus cow pasture. They can be seen at the university at any time, that is, any reasonable time. Shall I read us some Professor Cooper's notes on meteor situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes, it's a powerful data. Early members of these South Apache tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now completely disappeared. Possible tracings in 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachycephalic blue lights up. For the most part, since then it's been the Slav Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor?
Within the time limit 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
Oh, yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The Poles district raised at 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality rate is constant by mass per person's age, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir, not at all.
This way, Professor, and thank you again. And now the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb?
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb. The Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by Board of Select Men. All males vote at the age of 21 and women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling up professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 85% Republican, 10% Democrat, and 4% Socialist. And then religiously, we're 86% Protestant, 10% Catholic, and the rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. It's better behaved than most, but probably a lot duller. But our young folks seem like it well enough, because 90% of them settle down right here, even after they've been away to college.
Would anyone from the audience like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, I don't know what you'd call much. Saturday night's the farm stand to meet at Eleanor Greenhouse's stable and hall or something. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a big problem in Grover's Corners. Let's go to the medicine test and write down good for a snake bite. You know, always was.
Is there no one in town aware
Come
of?
forward, will you, where we can all hear you? What were you saying?
Is there no one in town aware of the social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh yes, something terrible. Seems everybody's talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all just looking for a way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. In the meantime, we do what we can to help those that can't help themselves and leave alone those that can. Are there any more questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense that you mean, of course. We have a couple of girls that play piano and has a commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there ain't much, but I think now's the time to tell you that we have a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We watch the sun coming over the mountains in the morning, and we all pay a good deal of attention to the birds, and oh yes, we pay a lot of attention to the changing of the seasons. Sure, we all know Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, Handel's Margot, and Whistler's Mother, of course, but that's about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
No problem.
Now we'll go back to town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town. A buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street. Horses dozing at the hitching posts. We all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is over there mowing his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to his own lawnmower. No, sir. Later, little boy. Good children come home from school.
I can't, Lois. I want to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran had me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
Yeah, you certainly do stick to it, Emily. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Say, Emily, what do you think we work out a kind of telegraph system from your window to mine? And every now and then you give me a hint or two about one of those algebra problems? I don't mean the answers. Of course not, Emily. Just a hint.
Well, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle over to me and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figured that it's just the way a person is born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the talk, Emily. I better be getting out to the baseball field. Morning, Mother Webb.
Morning, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come help me string some of these beans for the winter. Why, George Gibbs let himself have a good conversation, didn't he? He's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Well, let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off of school. I'm going to make speeches all of my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and make them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Why, yes, of course you are. All of my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they didn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you, yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Why, yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
But Mama, there has to be something you can say about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
You make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now, take that hold.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. We're going to have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emily. There are some more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go all the way to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. So they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. So they're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of covering all this reading matter in a glue, a silicate glue that'll make it last 1,000, 2,000 years. So we're putting in a Bible, and the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people living in it, and all we know about them are some names of kings, and some copies of wheat contracts, and some contracts for the sale of slaves, yet every night all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up the chimney, same as here. Even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking homes and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So I'm going to put a copy of this play in the cornerstone, so people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles or the Limburg Fight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our living and in our growing up and in our marrying and in our dying. Well, good deal of time has gone by. Your choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like
Now, listen up, everybody. Music come into the world to bring pleasure.
Tis a gift to be simple.
Softer.
Tis a gift to be free.
Softer.
Tis a gift to...
Get it out of your heads that music is only good when it is loud. Leave the loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now again, tenors.
Psst, Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work at all. The moonlight's so terrible.
Hey, Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third?
Why, yes, George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, wallpaper. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight just terrible? And with choir practice going on, I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Conticook. Hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily. And thanks.
Good night, George.
Now, before I forget it, how many of you can come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hersey's wedding? Show your hands. That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll sing the same music we did at Jane Trowbridge's last month. Now we'll sing How Can I Keep Myself from Singing? It is a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Oh, George, can you come down here a minute?
Yes, Bob.
Make yourself comfortable. I'll be giving you a minute. How old are you, George?
I'm 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do when you get older?
But you know, Pop, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to feed and clean the stock and hoe and hay all day?
Yes, of course, Pop. What do you mean?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a strange sound. You know what it was? It was your mother, chopping wood. There you see her, getting up early, making meals all day, washing and ironing, and she still had to go in the backyard to chop wood. And you eat her meals, and you wear the clothes she keeps nice for you. But you treat her like some girl we keep around that we don't like very much. Here's an handkerchief, son. I know I have to call this to your attention. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood, of course, because that's a gift to give to your mother. But because you're getting older now, and there'll be something you want to spend the money on.
Thanks, Pop.
Let's see. Payday's tomorrow. You can count on it. Rebecca will probably want more also. Wonder where your mother could be. Choir practice never runs this late.
It's only 8:30, Pop.
Otherwise, for the old choir anyway. Doesn't have a voice of an old crow. Tramps around the street this hour of the night. Just about time you retire, don't you think?
Yes.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mrs. Foster. I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Oh, good night, Irma.
Real nice car practice, wasn't it?
Oh, Marla, look at that one, will you?
Huh. Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of the others. But now that we're alone, really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Simpson?
No.
But Julia, to have the organist of the church drinking drunk year after year, and you know he was drunk tonight.
No. We all know about Mr. Simpson.
bright as day. I can see Mr. Stone scowling at the window now. If you give him to a dance with him, and he'll carry on.
Well, we had a real good time.
You are home late enough,
No, Frank, it's not any later than usual.
but you still had time to stop at the corner and gossip with the hens.
Oh, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Oh, isn't this wonderful? What did you do all the time I was away?
You know, I read as usual. What are ladies gossiping about tonight?
Oh, believe me, Frank, there was something to gossip about.
Simon Stinson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How that, and Frank, Dr. Ferguson can't forget him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stinson's personal affairs than anybody else does. Some people aren't made for that small town life, but if there's anything we could do, we just gotta let it be. Come on, it's getting late.
No, Frank, not yet. I'm worried about you.
Worried about what, Julia?
I think it's my duty to make sure that you get a real good rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Julia, there's no point going over this again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia, it's getting cold. Next thing you know, you're getting a cold. I spoke to George last night. We're gonna have your wood shop for a little bit. Oh, no. Right upstairs.
Oh dear. There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people at that part of town do.
They're getting citified. That's the problem with them. Then they fit the burglar about, and they all know it.
Rebecca, get out! There's only room for one at this window. You spoil everything.
Well, let me just look a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think that the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and then there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon was getting nearer and nearer, the people who sit at their telescopes all night would have seen it, and we would have read about it in the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on Canada, South America, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out. No, there's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And there's Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Yup.
All quiet tonight?
Simon Simpson was rolling around a little bit. Saw his wife move back to hunt him down, so I left it be. Here he comes now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down pretty well for the night. Yes, seems it has. Guess we should do the same. May I walk a long ways with you?
I don't know how that's gonna end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you.
I don't think your boy smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Not at least more than 1 or 2 a year.
Well, I hope not. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Myrtle, is that you?
No, it's me, Papa.
What are you doing out of bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes, Emily. Haven't any troubles on your mind, have you?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa. I never told you about that letter that Jane Crowfoot got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote her a letter, and on the envelope, it said this. It said, Jane Crowfoot, the Crowfoot Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
Rebecca, what's funny about that?
Well, listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
Wow.
And the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
So that was the end of the first act, friends. Now 3 years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rain has brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And a number of young people who thought they were right young and spry can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to, without their heart fluttering a little. All of that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. The mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Almost everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act is called the daily life. This act is called love and marriage. There's another act coming up after this. I reckon you could guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904, July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last examinations and solid geometry and Cicero's orations look like they feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's here drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines drenched. All yesterday on Main Street, the rain looks like curtains being blown along. There. Near the 5:45 for Boston. Here's Mrs. Gibbs coming downstairs to make breakfast. Mrs. Webb, too, as if it were any other ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the woman in my audience that those ladies they see before them, both of those ladies cooked 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, cooked, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets said. You've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Giddy up, Bessie!
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk. And there's Cy Crowell delivering the papers like her brother before her.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Cy. Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much, except for the thing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases too.
Yep, mighty fine baseball player. Whoa, Bessie! I guess I can't stop and talk if I'm in mind to.
I just don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had no talent that way. Morning, Bill. You're up early.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. Water's been rising all night.
Cy Crowell here is all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
That's how it goes, Cy. See, back in '84, we had a ball player, name of Hank Todd. Even George Gibbs couldn't beat him. Went down to Maine to become a parson. Howie, how's the weather look to you today?
Not bad. It'll clear up. Come on, Bessie.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
No. It rained so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want today?
Well, I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Seems to me I'll need 3 milk and 2 cream.
My wife told me to tell you we hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Oh, she'll get there. She'll get there if she can. Good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I know I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am. And the 2 of cream?
Yes. Do you think it'll start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, just saying to Mrs. Gibbs how it may clear up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you we hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Well, thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom, and we hope to see you at the wedding.
Oh, we'll get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. It looks like you're losing one of your chips.
Fred Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Here, sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself. Only thing is, there isn't much to shave. Singing and whistling, like he's excited to leave us. And every once in a while, we'll look in the mirror and say, I do. But if you ask me, it doesn't sound very convincing.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Oh, Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch a death of cold within a week.
I was wearing my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't start with that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fellow in the whole state of New Hampshire. Thought for sure I'll make a mistake. But then I saw you walking down the aisle and I thought, I'm marrying the prettiest girl in the world. Only thing was, I didn't know you. There I was in a congregational church, marrying a complete stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I made you something.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast!
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George standing up being a family man. That big gaggling thing. I tell you, Julia, nothing scarier than a son. The relationship between son and father is the darnest, awkwardest.
Oh, well, mother and daughter's no picnic either, let me tell you.
They have their troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everyone has the right to their own troubles.
Yes, people are meant to go through life together. Tain't natural to be lonesome.
One knows I was nervous for when we got married, Julia.
Go along with you.
Well, nothing to make conversation about. More than lasts just a few weeks. But here we are, 20 years later, and still converse about any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Tain't very choice, but always find something to say. Do you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
All I did hear her stood up there managing everybody's business. She's upset. I get the impression she's crying.
Lord sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everyone. Only 5 more hours to live.
George, yes, where do you think you're going?
I'm just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You do not step outside of this house unless you're prepared for it.
Ma, it's just a step.
You'll catch a death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, listen to your mother.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're in my house, you live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
I'll be back in a minute, Ma. Morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, George, you frightened me. Now, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
Well, you know as well as I do. The groom can't see his bride on their wedding day. Well, not until he sees her in church.
That's just an old superstition. Morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that old superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How is Emily?
Haven't heard a sound out of her. She's still asleep.
Emily asleep?
Well, no wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down a minute and, drink this cup of coffee with Mr. Webb, and I'll go upstairs and see Emily doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, George, you see, on her wedding day, a girl's head have to be full of clothes and one thing or another. Don't you think that's it?
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
A girl's have to be mighty nervous on her wedding day.
I wish a fella could get married with all that marching up and down.
Well, every man that's ever lived has felt that way, George, but ain't any use thinking about it. It's the woman who built up weddings, my boy, and for a while now the women have had it all their own. After all, a man looks pretty small at a wedding. All those good women standing side to side, tying it out in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh yes, oh yes. Don't get me wrong, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And don't you forget it, George.
Oh, no, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, George, I just been away to college, and Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is now, but age hasn't much to do with it, not compared to, other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? Oh, yes. I was just remembering some advice my father had given me when I was going to get married. He said, Charles, start out early showing who's boss. Give an order even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation or anything, just get up and leave the house. And oh yes, never Never let your wife know how much money you have.
Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since, George. And remember that, George, to never ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Oh,
a book came into my office the other day about the file system of raising chickens. I'm thinking of starting in a small way and putting an incubator on the side.
Charles! Are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought the two of you would be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to talk to the boy so much, how is I go upstairs and leave you down here with him?
Well, George, Emily has to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay her eyes on you goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, the bridegroom should never see the father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. We're going to have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began, this wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. How do such things begin? You know how it is. You're 21 or 22 and you make some life decisions and wish. You're 70, you've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady sitting at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are now going to show you a conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to remember a time when you were very young, and particularly the days that you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking and didn't quite see the street you were in and didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? George and Emily are going to be coming home from school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't know to tell you how important that is. Yep, there they are, coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine? Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that sister the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Oh, Emily, can I carry your books home for you?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Oh, excuse me a minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm late, start practice anyway, and throw Herb some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you ask, I might as well just come right out and say it. Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What is it?
I don't like this whole change that's come over you in the past year. And I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up until a year ago, I used to like you. A lot. And I watched you as you did everything because we'd been friends for so long. And then you started spending all of your time at baseball and you never stopped to talk to anybody anymore. Not even to your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've become awful conceited and stuck up, and all of the girls say so. They may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say that, but I've got to agree with them a little. Now, I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry that I said it.
No, Emily, I'm glad you said it. I didn't know that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
Well, I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can see, your father is too, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be.
But I see it's the other way around, that girls are naturally good and men aren't.
Well, you might as well know, right now, that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be as perfect as a man, because we girls more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
Now I see it's not the truth at all, and it suddenly isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before we go home?
Why, thank you. I would.
Hey, Stu. This is Mr. Morgan.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what you been crying about?
Oh, Mr. Morgan, she just had an awful scare. She almost got run over by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says Tom Hutchins drives like a madman.
Well, now, you take a drink of water, Emily. Why, you look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What do you have?
A strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, please.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses on Main Street this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday. And now they're bringing in those automobiles. Why, the best thing to do is to just stay home. Why, I remember when a dog could go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing come along to disturb him. Well, there they are. Enjoy them. Yes, Mrs. Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Oh, don't think of that, Emily. We're celebrating our election. And you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I have a friend who tells me everything that ought to be told me.
Oh, George, please don't mention that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true.
No, Emily, I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you bet, I'm gonna change. You'll see. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agricultural College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away from things for 3 years, you get out of touch with everything. And letters from Grover's Corners might not be so interesting after a while. I mean, Grover's Corners isn't a very important place compared to all New Hampshire, but I think it's a nice town.
The day wouldn't come where I wouldn't want to know everything that's going on here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, then I'll try to make my letters interesting.
Yeah, you know, Emily, every time I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agricultural school to become a good farmer.
Why, George?
And some say it's even a waste of time. Why, you go and all that stuff from the pamphlets that the government sends out. And Uncle's getting old. He's about ready for me to come in tomorrow if I could.
My.
And like you said, Emily, being gone all that time in other places, meeting other people, gosh, if something like that can happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I bet they almost never are. And Emily, I feel like you're as good as a friend as I've got. And I don't need to go to the town to meet other people.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soil and those things. But of course, I don't know.
I'm gonna make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pop about it tonight.
But George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. And what you said was right. There was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said for a year I wasn't noticing people. Why, you, for instance. You say you're watching me when I did everything. But I was doing the same thing about you. Sure, I always thought about you as one of the chief people in my life. I always knew where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you. But something's always gotten in the way. Like yesterday, I was waiting by the wall, and you walked up with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny, isn't it? Why, how could I have known that? I thought that you were...
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I don't want to go to agricultural school. I think that when you found someone who you're very fond of, or is fond of you too, or at least likes you enough to take an interest in your character, why, that's just as important at school, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think that's awfully important too.
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, could you be, would you be?
I am now. I always have been.
I guess this is a pretty important talk we can have.
Yes.
Oh, wait just a minute and I'll pay for this. Mr. Morgan, I don't have the money to pay for these. Can I get it?
Why, George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me that you...
Yes, Mr. Morgan, but I had good reasons. Now, here, you can keep my gold watch, and...
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. All over your sock, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't fit them all into one wedding, naturally, and especially not a wedding at Grover's Corners, where they're mighty plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. Yes, for a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Miss Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds, and we thought that ought to be a part of our play, too. The real hero of the scene isn't on stage at all, and you all know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding, the ancestors, millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years now, and now she's going off to eat it in somebody else's house. Oh, I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table, and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it, you know. There's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it as blind as that myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Here they come.
George!
Hey, George!
Hey!
Look at him, fellas. He looks scared to death.
Oh! Yeah, George. You don't look so innocent now, you old geezer.
We know what you're thinking. Don't disgrace the team, big boy.
Oh!
All right. That'll do. That's enough of that.
Boo!
We used to have an awful lot of that kind of thing at weddings in the olden days, Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good luck, show me the way.
George? George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me?
George, you wanted it.
Ma, listen to me.
No, George, you're a man now.
Ma, for the last time, I just want to be a fella.
George, should anybody hear you? Stop it. I'm ashamed of you.
Ma, cheer up. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Hey, Ma, save Thursday nights for me. On Thursday nights, me and Emily will come over for dinner. Now, cheer up. Let's get ready for this.
I never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so... I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa, Papa.
Emily, don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything's all right.
Why can't I stay just as I am for a little while? Let's go away.
Now stop and think a minute.
Don't you remember what you used to say? All the time, you used to say that I was your girl. There must be lots of places we can go. I'll work for you. I can keep house.
Why, Emily, you mustn't think of such things. George, will you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the whole world. George is a fine fellow. George, I'm giving away my daughter. Do you think you can take care of her?
Oh, yes, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my very best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will, Emily. I'll try.
And I mean forever, do you hear me? Forever and ever.
Come. Now you know it'll be all right. Come quick.
This woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have
perfectly lovely wedding, loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Oh, doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. I don't know why it is, but I always cry. Oh, I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
The ring? I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting.
Oh, aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I don't know when I've been to such a nice wedding. Oh, I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness, that's the great thing. Oh, the best thing is to be happy.
Well, that's all the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers are coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop. A windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are. Up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up there, if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington. And of course, right here's our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, and all these towns that lie around it. Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Peterborough and Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Brooklyn or Woodlawn when they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there, the old stones, 1670, 1680, strong-minded people who come a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around there laughing at the funny words on the tombstones. Don't do any harm. And the genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. Want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Wherever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Over there, some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. You know, they're just a couple of New Hampshire boys who had the notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. The United States of America, and they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friends, Mrs. Gibbs. Let me see, here's Mr. Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church. And Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so, you remember? And Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is. And then time, and sunny days, and rainy days, and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place, and we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out or look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal, and it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows deep in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. The greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay very interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the ambitions they had and pleasures they had and the things they suffered and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth, that's the way I put it. Weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time they slowly become indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something important and great. Aren't they waiting for that eternal part of them to come out clear? Some of the things they're going to say, maybe you'll hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone? And your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker here, supervising the new-made graves, and there's a Grover's Corners girl who left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now, do I know you? I'm Sam Craig. Gracious sakes alive, of all people, I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam. Yes, I've been away for 12 years now. I'm out in Buffalo for business, and I was out east when I got news of my cousin. So I decided I'd combine things a little and visit the old home. You look well. Yes, can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Samantha. Oh, yes. Yes, I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home. Farmer McCarty. Oh, I used to do the chores for him. He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I had forgotten that she... Of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago now. About this time, too. Today's another pretty bad blow for him.
That's my sister Carrie's girl. Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon. They don't choose their own verses much, do they, Joe?
No, not usual. Usually the Breathe pick a verse.
That doesn't sound like my aunt at all. Not much of those Hersey sisters left. Now, where are... I would like to visit my mothers and fathers.
Oh, they're over with the Craigs, Avenue F.
Simon Stimson. He was the organist at the church. Oh, he would drink a lot, we used to say.
Yes, no one was supposed to know about it, though. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Did he?
Yes, he hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush up about it, but of course, it got around. He chose his own epitaph. It ain't much a verse, exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? She had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. It was her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
And the grave's going to be over there?
Yes, there ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbses section over by Avenue B. If you'll excuse me now, I see them coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy.
What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth? My, I'd forgotten all about that. Wasn't life awful?
And wonderful?
Wonderful. Was it?
Simon, I remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Oh, wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls that ever graduated from high school. Principal Wilkins said so time after time. I called with them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
It was the same road we lived on.
Yep, right smart farm.
As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old
I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they sing a hymn.
The starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs. Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily?
Hello. It's raining.
Yes, they'll be gone soon, dear. Just trust yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here longer. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Oh, Mother Gibbs, George and I turned that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought about you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the long cement drinking fountain for the stock. Why, we bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350.
Yes, Emily. Yes.
Well, there's this little patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never falls below this little mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Life people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? It seems like I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Oh, Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Of being one of them? How long does it?
Dear, just wait and be patient.
I know. Look. They're finished. They're going. Look. Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers over to you. Why, he looks just like George, doesn't he? I never realized how troubled and how in the dark life persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are. Troubled.
A little cooler than it was.
Yeah, that rain's cooled it off a little.
Those winds always seem to do the same thing, don't they?
Well, if it isn't rain, it's a 3-day blow.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back there again, into living. I feel it. Why, I know it. Just for a moment there, I was thinking about the farm. And for a minute, I was there, and my baby was on my lap plain as day.
Well, of course you can.
I can go and live all of those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back.
Don't do it, Emily. Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't choose to live over a sad day. I'll pick a happy day. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they, down there, never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our lives are to forget all of that, and to think of what's ahead, and to be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had.
Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's something I must know for myself. I'll pick a happy day.
No! At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
Well, then it can't be since I was married. And it can't be since the baby was born. I can pick a birthday, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right, February 11th, 1899. It's a Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they had begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
Look! There's Main Street! And Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, that's the town I knew as a little girl. And look! The old white fence that used to be around our house. Why, I'd forgotten that. I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days, but he came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York at Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsome, and our police officer. But he's dead. He died.
Whoa, Bessie! Bessie! Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Howie.
You're up early.
You guys gonna go party down here at Polish Town. Darn near froze to death, he did. Got drunk and laid out in his snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children, Molly, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come dressed by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsome. It's cold.
10 below my barn, Mrs. Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama? I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes, yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back at my old college at New York State. How are things around here?
Just got to go to a party down near Polish Town. Darn near froze to death, he did.
We must get it in the paper.
Twasn't much.
Papa!
Good morning, Mother.
Morning, Charles. How'd it go?
Oh, fine. I told him a few things. How are things around here?
Nothing's happened special I can think of. Been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over at his barn.
It's colder than that in Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Oh, Charles, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Oh, yes. I got something for her right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday
Don't
girl?
interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's so low enough as it is. Children, Wally, Emily, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well now, dear, a very happy birthday and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper there is from your Aunt Carrie, and I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. Found it while I was bringing in the milk this morning. George Gibbs must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George. I'd forgotten that.
Cheer your bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Oh, Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead too, Mama. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it, don't you remember? But now, just for a moment, we're together, Mama. Just for a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another.
Oh, and that in the yellow paper there is something I found among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
And this must be from you. Why, it's just lovely, and it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Thought you'd like it. Hunted all over. Yeah, Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so we had to send it all the way to Boston. Wally made you something too in his manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Make sure you make a big fuss over it. Your father got you something too. Don't quite know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I never realized. So all that was going on, and we never noticed. Take me back up the hill to my grave. But wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye to Grover's Corners, to Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No. The saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back. Were
happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes. Now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down, trampling on the feelings of those around you. To spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years. To always be at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look at that star. Oh, I forget its name.
My boy Joel knew the stars. He used to sit on the porch step and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
The stars mighty good company. Yes, 'tis.
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny.
Tain't no time for them to be here.
Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Dude, just rest yourself.
It's George.
And my boy Joel, who knew the stars, he used to say it took millions of years for that speckle of light to get to the earth. Don't see my body to believe it, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily.
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Almost everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by, and in the livery stable, somebody's setting up and talking. Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars, doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings out there. Just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away. Straining away all the time to make something of itself. And the strain's so bad that every 16 hours everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too. Good night.
Teachers here also. So these go to Mr. Chisholm, Mr. Hurley, and Mr. Stork.
All right.
Come on. I don't want the microphone. So, our assistant director only came to one show because she had another amazing opportunity to go to. Her name was Talia. So we thanked her a few days ago, but we want to thank her publicly. So let's give a round of applause to Talia. She did an amazing job, and we couldn't have done it without her. And I'm not sure if this person knows she's getting flowers, but we want to thank Allie Breyer for making this great promo. Get out, Peter. Allie made the great promo you saw on WSTV, and she also made the promo, whatever this thing, the programs that you guys read, I hope. She spent a lot of time on them. Read them, they're great.
All right, so first we'd like to thank the person who did all this amazing makeup. Don't they look so fabulously dead? Her name is Maddie Misk, and she brought this show to life with her creativity and talent, and she's back there because she doesn't know she's getting these, but she's so cool. And she's so fun to have backstage, and we love laughing and singing and dancing with her, and she's just...
Here she is.
Alexandra Block, who did all the amazing costumes.
Yes, Alex.
Get out here. I love you, Alexandra. Come here. She does so much hard work for the show, sewing and putting together all the costumes and measuring us. And we're so hard to work with, and she's so great. And we're so thankful to her every year. Like, we can't do the show without her. And she just...
Okay, so we have two really, really amazing stage managers that we want to thank. So Jen and Emma.
Yeah, Jen, yeah!
We really couldn't have done it without them. They know all our cues. I don't know all our cues. They know all our cues, and they set up like my whole house, and they just they do everything. So, yeah. Thank you. Okay.
We have the man that made this all possible. I don't know where he is. Can you come here? He's right there.
Hey.
He puts up with so much that we go through. And he's amazing, and we couldn't have done this without him. So thank you, Mr. Mckenna.
I won the pageant. I wanted just to shout out, first off, to all this cast and crew. This has been an amazing process. One of the best times I've ever had in the theater. So thank all of you guys. And I want to thank all the parents out there for all the support that you have given us. The PTO, I'd also like to call out Sherry Arbital Jacoby, who's right here in the front row. Publicity, all the great press she gets for us, and Maura Callio, I don't know if she's here, who has worked with Alexandra, our great costume designer, to get all these costumes up here. We wouldn't have been able to do the show without both of you.
Yes, Alex!
That's a wrap. All right.